online?
Yes,
yes please. You can
yes,
go
we
online.
start now.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
okay.
Okay,
Now you
wait
can.
for a few minutes. Now we can start. Okay. So you're very welcome to the 7th symposium of the URAP Center. We are doing these symposia since 2010. Every 2 years there's a symposia. And this year we choose a very active topic. And the title of the symposium is The Future of University Rankings. And we have distinguished speakers to this symposia. We would like to thank to Professor Ahmet Yozgatlıgil. He is the president of Middle East Technical University, who's actually hosting all our facilities, and a lot of stuff is from Middle East Technical University. Then we will keep going on with Ural Hoca, and then Isidro and Sergei are going to give their speeches and lectures. So Professor Ahmet Yozgatlıgil, dear Rector, dear President of Middle East Technical University, the stage is yours. We are ready for your welcome message. And thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much, esteemed participants, colleagues, and honored guests, our Rector, Ural Hocam. Thank you for inviting us to this symposium. I'm very honored. I'm very honored to join the 7th International URAP Symposium. Of course, this is a very important event, and I would like to thank again Professor Dr. Ural Akbulut, the URAP coordinator, and the entire URAP team for organizing this important event and for inviting me to share my thoughts with such distinguished group of attendees. So today we came together to talk about the higher education institutions and how and their contributions to the national and global development. And as president of Middle East Technical University, I have witnessed firsthand how critical the advancement of higher education has become, particularly in the last few decades. And universities are no longer just centers of learning. They are the driving force behind innovation, economic development, and societal progress. So, of course, with respect to the Turkish higher education, Turkish Higher Education Council, YÖK, has been instrumental in shaping the future of the higher education in Turkey. And we call this as YÖK, Higher Education Council. And it is a commitment to promoting quality, innovation, specialization, diversity, and competitiveness is yielding. We are very happy to see that it is yielding very positive results. We know this because Turkish universities have shown remarkable progress in international university rankings in recent years. So in 2025, actually 5 of our universities, they are ranked, they are expected, or they are ranked to the top 500 globally, and 11 of them are already in the top 100. And furthermore, actually 75 Turkish universities were included in the 2025 World University Rankings. This number was 61 in 2023 and 54 in 2022. So this growth positions Turkey as the 7th most represented country in these global rankings, behind only major education powerhouses like United States, Japan, UK, India, China, and Russia. So these accomplishments reflect the dedication of our universities to achieving global standards of excellence. So through these initiatives, which is led by YÖK, Turkish universities are not only serving their domestic societies, but also playing an increasingly prominent role in education, in educating the global youth. So our universities are stepping into a more active and productive role in the economic and social development of both Turkey and the world. So as we move forward, we know that the foundation of technological advancement is scientific research, and the home of such research is our universities. So at Middle East Technical University, we are very proud to contribute to this national effort. So through the implementation of the strategic data management and performance-driven initiatives, we have achieved significant progress. For example, in QS rankings, METÜ secured the 285th position globally, and in Times Higher Education, our current ranking is within the band of 351 and 400. So these results are a testament to the hard work and dedication of our academic community and the effectiveness of the strategies we have implemented. Of course, this progress, our university's progress, is part of a broader national goal in the 12th Development Plan and YÖK's Turkish Higher Education Council's 2024 and 2028 strategic plan, which has ambitious targets which was set for the Turkish research universities. These two plans, of course, aims to have at least 2 universities in the top 200, 10 in the 500, in the top 500, and 50 in the top 1,000 within 5 years. So we are very confident that with the continued dedication, support, and strategic alignment, we will meet and exceed these goals. So as METÜ, we embrace 2 key approaches in our effort to further elevate our standing in global rankings. First, we will continue to support our researchers by providing them with the resources and incentives needed to boost their productivity. And second, of course, we will focus on the healthy collection and analysis of institutional data, allowing us to implement data-driven strategic management practices. So by doing so, we can accurately identify our strengths and areas for improvement, ensuring that METÜ remains at the forefront of higher education, both in Turkey and internationally. So in addition to our work in rankings and research, Turkish universities are also leading the way in the critical areas such as sustainability and social responsibility. Of course, YÖK's introduction of initiatives like sports-friendly campuses, thematic vocational schools, and projects focusing on sustainability and green transformation, these are just few examples of how our universities are aligning with international standards and contributing to the society. So these initiatives reflect our commitment to fostering a higher education system that not only excels in academic performance, but also promotes the well-being of students. And so this is very important in terms of full coverage of the well-being. As we look to the future, the internationalization of Turkish higher education will remain a strategic priority for Turkey, and the efforts to attract international students and researchers, combined with our push for higher rankings, are positioning Turkish universities as key players in the global education landscape. Our goal of Turkey's goal of reaching 500,000 international students is within the sight, and we are committed to ensuring that these students receive a world-class education in Turkey. So in conclusion, I would like to once again extend my thanks to the Turkish Higher Education Council for its leadership and vision, and the URAP team for organizing this symposium. URAP plays a critical role in raising awareness about university performance and helping institutions identify areas for improvement. I'm confident that the discussions and insights shared during this event will help guide us all toward a brighter future for higher education. Thank you, and I wish you all a productive and insightful symposium.
Thank you.
Sayın Ahmet Hocam, Sayın Rektörüm, thank you very much for your introductory speech. It was very nice to hear your words on these rankings and the vision you showed about Turkey and Turkish universities. Thank you so much. And with your permission, we would like to start with our lectures.
Please.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Ural Hocam, would you like to go on? The stage is yours, and maybe you could start sharing your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for our guests who joined us today. Can I start? Yeah, okay. Can you see my PowerPoint? About the history of ranking in the world. And the first ranking in the world appeared in 1874. It goes back to England. And we see that the universities in England decided to educate the students the best way, and all the universities declared that they were the top university, but of course, somebody had to be the judge. So Galton in 1874 decided to be the judge for that, and he made a big study, and then he finally concluded that universities were not all the same. All he did was to see how the universities produce the top students. And he did not actually complete ranking he had, but it was an attempt to help some future people to make proper rankings. So he was not able to announce a complete ranking. Alec MacLean was the first one in England to have a complete list of ranking. And he first decided to have list of the most respected people in England, since if somebody is respected, so he must be definitely a well-educated person. Then he determined how many respected people studied at each university. So if, let's say, 100 respected people were the graduate to Oxford, and then 900 of them, or 90 of them from Cambridge, then he gave some points, and then he had a chance to list the universities according to the points they received because of the number of respected people, graduated of each university. Then, of course, it was a long study, took a long time. In those days, it was the habit to write books about these kind of studies, all kinds of studies. So it was popular to write books rather than papers because ordinary people couldn't reach the papers, but they could reach the books. Then we see that there's Havelock Ellis in 1904. He made similar ranking. He made the list of the people in England who were considered to be genius. And then he ranked the universities according to the number of geniuses who studied at each British university. So if people all agreed that that person was a genius, maybe let's say 100 or 500 or whatever, so he just distributed them to the universities, and then he said, which university has the highest number of genius? It's number one and on. Then similar studies started in United States because Cattell had worked with Galton at that time, so he knew that it was possible to rank universities. In 1906, he prepared a list of 4,000 scientists in USA, and then he listed the American scientists according to the university they graduated from. Now, when you have the list, then of course you can easily find out these respected people or these distinguished people may be accumulated in one university more than the other. So he made a list of universities according to the number of top people who graduated from their universities. Then he selected 1,000 academicians among the most successful, respected 4,000 scientists. He eliminated some of them because he gave some points, and then he had a list of 1,000 top people. Then he made a group of 100 people each, so he had 10 groups, of course, and he determined the number of academics in the top 100 at each US university. Then he multiplied the number in the highest score. Then he gave, of course, lower scores to the other academicians. So when you are in top 100, you received much higher points. And then when he went down, he gave less points. Harvard, of course, came out to be the number one, and then the others. I don't want to give the other lists. In United States, they were, when we see that in 1924, Raymond Hughes made another university ranking. his ranking was based on results of the surveys. So we see that the first survey, like QS and Times and US News and Report, this was the earliest example of surveys. He sent surveys to some scientists in universities. Let's say he sent to, let's say, chemists, and they said, which chemists are the top chemists in the world and things like that. So depending on the surveys, he made a ranking of universities. Now, when, of course, they were the primitive rankings, and we had to wait for a long time to see a modern ranking. The first modern ranking was appeared in 1983. It was by US News and World Report. It's a magazine in the United States. Usually, you know, the magazines, they like to have surveys for some decisions. And in 1983, they sent out surveys and then some other criteria. They ranked United States universities. So it was the first modern ranking of a local university ranking. So some of them were surveys, but the other ones were different data. Now, when we talk about the world ranking, we never saw a ranking of world universities until 2003. Until that time, many universities thought that they were the best in the world. But when the picture came out, everybody was surprised, because I thought that when I was the president, I thought that METÜ was among the best universities in the world, because we all believe in that. But when the picture came out, that when they announced the top 500, unfortunately, METÜ was not on the list. We see here the one of the founders of our list, Professor Nihan Çaylıoğlu. He was in our URAP Symposium in 2010. So the ranking started in Jiatong University, but then two founders of the ranking left the university. Now they are separate institutions. They are not attached to a university. Now, Leiden University ranking, it started in 2007. Soon after Arwe appeared, many scientists around the world decided that maybe they could make another list of universities and announce the top universities in the world. So Leiden was another one. So when we look at Leiden's indicators, MSc is average number of citations of the publications of university. MNCS is the average number of citations of the publications, normalized for the field difference, because citations vary between the various disciplines or fields. And PP, top 10, proportions of the top 10% publications. Actually, Leiden University did not have these indicators in the very beginning. This is the last one. So in time, they changed the ranking criteria slightly, but the founder was Van Raan, and here we see that Van Raan was in our symposium in 2012. Now, NTU, National Taiwan University Ranking, unfortunately, not many people talk about this, but I think this is one of the most respected rankings at NTU. It's announced with the university, National Taiwan University. This lady, Professor Mu Suan Huang, she is the director of libraries and information sciences. She and her team announces the National Taiwan University. So this is another university which announces university ranking like Leiden. It was established in 2007. Indicators are based on all academic performance. Research productivity is number of articles in the last year, number of articles in the current year, number of citations in the last 11 years, number of citations in the last 2 years, average number of citations in the last 11 years, H-index of the last 2 years, number of highly cited papers, number of articles, highly impact journals in the current centers. It's a long. There are some other details among their indicators, but I just gave a summary. Now we'll talk about the ranking of Isidro, who started Webometrics ranking. And when Isidro first started to rank universities, he was concentrated on the web pages, because many years ago he told me that he made this ranking to help universities to develop their web pages, because he said he believed in the importance of web pages. But now he's not ranking on the pages. It's a academic performance also used in his indicators. He is in Cybermetrics lab. It's one of the CSCIC is one of the biggest research centers, and there are many of them there. But he is part of Cybermetrics lab. Now, if you look at the indicators, I just give the summary of all of them. One is visibility, the other is transparency, and the other one excellency. Now, number of external networks, that is other people giving link to your web page. And second indicator is number of citations from top 310 authors. That's about 10%. Number of papers among the top 10%, most cited each one of the all 27 disciplines, because we have a top 10% in many different fields. So today is our speaker, Isidro. He is the founder of Webometrics, and he was also our speaker in 2012. Isidro announces, I think, 30,000 or even more institutions and universities in his Webometrics, and he's the only person, perhaps, he's doing all by himself. Simago, it's again another Spanish ranking. It's a very respectable ranking. There are 11 sub-indicators under research, which is 50%, quality of publication, Q1, international collaboration, IC, etc. Second one is innovation, 30%. And there are 3 sub-indicators. I didn't want to give all the sub-indicators, which it takes a long time. And then patents and technological impact, societal, that there are 6 sub-indicators. Here is the founder of Simago, Felix de Maya Anagon. Maybe we can in future see him in our symposium. I'd be pleased to host him. Now, let's talk about Times Higher Education. Do Ranking was first founded in 2004, collaborating with QS. And then they collaborated. Times Higher Education is a magazine. But Quacquarelli Symonds approached them and they said, why don't we carry out a ranking? So they worked together with QS. And then until 2010, we had our first symposium, international symposium. And when Phil Betty arrived there, he said that we are separated from QS. They separated in QS. And then now they both rank separately. They use surveys, of course, both of them, but they also use some academic indicators, academic performance indicator. Phil Betty, here we see it, he is the director or responsible person of Times Higher Education. He was in our symposium in 2012 as well. Now let's talk about RUR and CWR rankings. These are not comparable to many other systems, because we see that they do not have any team. They are not like Isidro, because you have to collect many, many thousands of data. I don't know how Isidro does it, but these people somehow do not have any team. RUR is located in Georgia, Tbilisi. CW is located in United Arab Emirates. CW is 1 person. I think RUR has 2 persons, but we do not have any information about their technical team and how they collect data. And we have no idea. They just announced the rankings, but we have no idea about the details. Now I am going to end my talk. and I will see, I'll try to tell you how some institutions look at rankings. Le Monde magazine says rankings may irritate, but they cannot be ignored. And there's an important European Union report that's 2014. It says rankings have acted as a wake-up call to higher education community in terms of their competitive position at national and international level. I think this expression, wake-up call, is the main thing about this sentence, because we all woke up, as I mentioned, when Arvu announced that none of the Turkish universities except Istanbul was in top 500. It was a shock for us, at least in Turkey. Well, thank you for listening. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer.
Ural Hocam, thank you very much. With your permission, we can have the discussion at the very end of the lectures. And I would like to invite now Isidro for his lecture, but can I ask you to stop sharing your page, Ural Hocam? Just a small information, we are recording these presentations, and you can reach them after a short while in the URAP Center website. So those who missed these talks can go back and have a look at them. Isidro, so the next talk is yours, and thank you very much for agreeing to join our symposia. The title of the speak is QARA and the University Rankings. The stage is yours, Isidro. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you can see my slides. Is correct? Okay, thank you very much. Of course, first of all, I want to thank again you invited me for talking about these very interesting topics, not only for the people developing the rankings, but of course for the people using them, both from academic managers to students and even parents that are also very interested in these topics. I'm going to talk a lot about QARA because I think it's very interesting for the future of the rankings, but also I'm going to talk a few words about artificial intelligence. The main reason is because I recognize the importance of artificial intelligence for the future of the rankings, but unfortunately, I am not an expert on this issue, and I need to explore more the possibilities opened by artificial intelligence, but perhaps in the future, we can be able to add this kind of applications to the rankers, of course, but also for the users. Well, I'm going to describe several topics, but I want to stress first that the rankings of universities and bibliometric indicators, metrics in general, are very popular and useful. You know, we are going to talk about QARA. QARA is saying, okay, perhaps rankings of universities are not so good, perhaps metrics are not the best approach, but you need to take into account the democratic aspect of this enterprise, because many people in all over the world are using both rankings and I'm using metrics indicators. So you need to take into account that this is going to be the same or similar in the future. The second thing I want to stress is that artificial intelligence is becoming more and more important in our work, in our days, and obviously it's scaling up very fast. So probably the next conference about these topics, we need to go deep in the possibilities offered by artificial intelligence, not only possibilities, but also the problems, the issues related to the adoption of artificial intelligence. And talking a bit about my own work, you need to take into account that the ranking web of university, Webometrics, was launched not only for ranking universities, but for promote open access to the knowledge generated by the universities themselves. And this is very, very important when we are talking about artificial intelligence, because at the end, most of the bot of the systems using AI is using public content. So it's very important that universities increases the number of the number and the quality of the contents they are publishing on the web, because it's this information that can be used by the artificial intelligence tools in order to serve their results. So this is very important. Please increase the quality and quantity of your web contents in order to face these new aspects. And the third point is, of course, not all the rankings are built the same way, so the impact depends of the characteristics of each ranking. So there are rankings focused on research, others focus on both research and technology. The QS or Times, they are considering overall situation. Sometimes we have rankings focus on specific missions and so on. So at the end, you need to take into account all of them are rankings of universities, but not all of them are using the same indicators or they are focusing on the same topics. Going to talk about Quora very fast because probably you are only interested in the main ideas. Quora is a initiative from the community, and this is very important because it's not an initiative from the big people, or big companies or big politicians, but is strongly supported by the funds of the European Union. So at the end, there is a real possibility of having a strong impact on the work we are doing. Of course, there are several barriers, several probably misunderstandings regarding Quora, but we need to take this initiative in our work even today, because this is very important. Quora is based on an agreement that consists of 10 points. The last 6 points are methodological, but the most important are the top 4 ideas, the agreements that are related to diversity, to the preference of peer review over metrics, the forbidden the use of journal-level metrics, and of course, talking very negatively about university rankings. I'm going to focus on one by one of these 4 main arguments. Okay, the other 6 parts of the agreement you can see are related to the support of the initiative. Well, talking about diversity. When we talk about diversity, we need to decide that we are no longer counting papers in standard journals, high impact factor journals. We need to consider more formats, more system of communicating information. And this is very important because we are no longer focused on papers. We need to focus on other informal ways of publication and also other kinds of other types of information. We can talk about, for example, open data. And for that, is very important the possibilities that is being offered by artificial intelligence. I think not only from the point of view of the commercial or open source systems that are open to everybody, but especially for us, the ranking editors, the new systems, we can customize or develop artificial intelligence tools in-house in order to improve our work in order to produce better rankings. And this is very important. You need to consider we need to target more diverse source of information, but we have new tools for facing this huge amount of new data. When we are considering this, next one. When we are considering this, please don't focus only on the traditional or the new data sources. Of course, there are new traditional bibliometric databases. Many of the rankings are using them, but we are not focusing only on these old and new sources. We need to consider many more options. For example, we need to consider not only the diversity of the production, but the diversity of the impacts. And of course, there are still a lot of work being developed here. We are talking about the GDPs, we are talking about patents, another source of information. But this is also a new meaning of the word diversity. It's not only the diversity of the papers or the informal communication, it's also the diversity of the impacts. And of course, I want to talk also about the diversity of the teams. So, at the moment, next one. Oh, well, the diversity of the teams. Oh, here. When we need to consider other aspects of the people working in the universities. So many other aspects of this diversity should be taken into account. You can consider aspects, for example, regarding the commitment of the institution, but also the inclusivity and the diversity of the people working, of the topics worked by the universities. This is also diversity. So we now have 3 levels of diversity: a new diversity of production, a deeper analysis of the diversity of impacts, and of course, the diversity of the institutions themselves, considering the people who are part of the institutions. Well, the second point is peer review. Everybody knows that here Quora is supporting a more qualitative aspect of the evaluation, but this is not new for us. You know, for example, Professor Ural mentioned before the systems based on surveys. So clearly, we have ways to consider the qualitative part of the evaluation. And we have information from the social networks, for example, using sentiment analysis, or our own approach using virtual referendum, counting the links people are targeting to the universities. And of course, we are talking about the future when GPT is able to provide us deeper insight of the contents of our institutions. Although I still very important to talk about, this is based mostly of public information. So you need to increase the volume and the quality of the contents of the websites. Journal level metrics, you know, at the end, both journal level metrics and article level metrics are not the most adequate systems. Many people are describing this as very simplistic, and obviously the solution is to search for sophisticated alternatives. Here, I think artificial intelligence is clearly the way to work. We need more information being prepared for analysis by the tools of AI. So we need more work to provide to the users information, for example, about our composite indicators. We need to develop a new system for scrapping more information. And at the end, perhaps the only alternative we have is to develop our own in-house AI tool. This is, I think, is very important. Finally, rankings are the bad boys in the Quora agreement. Well, no, perhaps the question is, we can make our rankings be more Quora compliant. Why? Well, perhaps we can still defend our approach using composite indicators. I think composite indicators, sorry, composite indicators is one of the most important contributions of the modern generation of rankings. We need to be more transparent about the data we are using. And with this information and extra information, we can increase the full coverage of the information using artificial intelligence. And this information should be diverse. For me, this is the important word in my presentation. Diversity that is strongly supported, proposed by Quora initiative, is the basis for provide extra information, extra data for analysis by artificial intelligence. So this is a preliminary approach to the issue, and of course, still there is a lot of things to be done in Quora, and of course, still a lot of things to be developed regarding artificial intelligence. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isidro. Very nice talk and very new dimensions. And there will be a lot of questions at the end of this session. I would like to continue with Sergei, with his lecture. Sergei, the floor is yours. And the title of your lecture is The 20th Anniversary of QS World University Rankings. Please go ahead.
Yes, I hope now you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Can I? Okay, let me just make it full screen.
Yeah, we can see your slide. Yeah.
Excellent. And I have to somehow, how can I do that?
Yeah, we can see your slide.
But I cannot minimize the screen with, so I'm afraid you can see yourselves as well.
No, no, it's fine.
No, we see just your presentation. Now it's okay. No problem.
Oh, really? Very good. Excellent.
Yes,
Because I have
go on. Yes.
something else on my screen, so I was afraid that it would obscure the content on my slides.
No.
So teşekkür ederim. Thank you so much for this great opportunity to be with you here today. And first of all, many thanks to the dearest Professor Dr. Ural Akbulut, who has been spearheading this very important initiative of the dialogue among rankings systems. I think it's one of the very few events, one of the very few professional fora in which representatives of different rankings come together peacefully and discuss different aspects of university performance, which is, of course, absolutely impressive. It testifies to the very high respect that we in the rankings community have for Professor Dr. Ural Akbulut and his absolutely highly professional team. It's our real pleasure to be working with you, to get to know you, and to participate in the URAP Symposium. We are absolutely impressed with the quality of work that you and your team do to develop the URAP rankings. This is absolutely stunning and remarkable. So thank you very much for inviting me here. And of course, special thanks to the president of the Middle East Technical University and the team of the university that has been absolutely outstanding in our most recent release of QS World University Rankings. It's thanks to you that you're making such fantastic, phenomenal progress in our flagship rankings. So the topic of the presentation was all about the future of university rankings. That's the title of the session. But let's talk about what the future holds for us. Nobody knows, but we will look at the data, we will look at the parameters and indicators, maybe considering that we have quite a few participants from Turkey, from Turkish universities, and I have seen quite a few familiar names in the list of participants. I will try to make this presentation a little bit informative and useful for you. We'll look at the data for Turkey and for Turkish universities very shortly. But before I start, let me just say that everybody hates rankings, except for #1 university in the rankings. #1 enjoys it a lot, but #2 already hates it because it's not #1. So what about university number 285 or number 321 in Turkey? that may want to be a little bit higher. And we have heard it from the president of METU that there is a lot of ambition, healthy ambition in the community of Turkish universities to excel, to demonstrate consistently academic excellence, continuous improvement in performance of universities, to make them even stronger, even more competitive. And I believe that's one of the roles that rankings play to motivate universities to be even the better versions of themselves. So let me start with our mission that we always include in our presentations. We are a mission-driven company whose mission is to enable motivated people around the world to fulfill their potential by fostering international mobility, educational achievement, and career development. In other words, everything we do has the student in the center of our rankings, of our research, of our work. It's for the students that we develop our rankings. We want our students to be informed about choices that they need to make based on information from the rankings, based on our data. We believe that our data, our ranks, our collection of different pieces of information about universities help make informed decisions to choose the right educational program and the right university to fulfill potential of young, talented individuals. That slide I showed back in, I believe, 2 years ago when we had our previous symposium. And I can tell you that the first symposium that I attended was back in 2016. By a very, very kind invitation of Professor Dr. Ural Akbulut, I came to Ankara in my previous role, and we had a lovely, lovely, lovely symposium. And that slide I showed online in our previous symposium that we did online in 2022. And we were planning to introduce 3 new indicators in our methodology of QS World University Rankings. And the first indicator was related to sustainability. The second to employment outcomes. The third to international research collaborations. And for 20 years, we didn't change a single indicator in the methodology. And the time had come for us to start making some changes to reflect the opinions of the professional community about what actually constitutes globally competitive universities, what kind of components they need to look at when they want to be globally successful, globally competitive. And it was absolutely impossible to continue publishing the rankings without reflecting the role of sustainability, employability, and international research collaborations. These 3 components became so important that it was absolutely impossible for us not to notice it. So let's now look at the evolution of the methodology. So before 2022, our methodology looked like this. 6 indicators: academic reputation had the biggest weight of 40%, employee reputation had the weight of 10%, citations per faculty had the weight of 20%, faculty-student ratio 20%, and then 2 internationalization indicators, such as international faculty ratio and international student ratio, had the weight of 5%. So what happened next? How it changed in 2022, actually, and then translated into the methodology and the results last year in 2023. First of all, we reduced the weight of academic reputation by 10%. It was 40%, it became 30%. The next step, we increased the weight of employer reputation because we started to realize that it's absolutely critical for any student to find a very good job after graduation from a university. So employer reputation gained weight. The weight increased from 10% to 15%. Citations per faculty remains the same. So it was 20%, it continues to be 20% in the new version of the methodology. Faculty-student ratio was reduced from 20% to 10%. And that particular change affected the rankings table the most significantly. And it was a very positive change for many Turkish universities whose faculty-student ratio was about, on average, 20 students per faculty member. I know in the Middle East Technical University, in Istanbul Technical University, you have 16 students per faculty member, but some institutions in Turkey have 23 or even 24 students per faculty member. And institutions in the top 100 of our QS World University rankings have about 4 or 5 students per faculty member. So this change, this reduction in the weight of faculty-student ratio as an indicator of QS World University rankings methodology has helped Turkish universities to significantly improve their positions in our flagship QS World University rankings. We will look at this in a minute. And then our internationalization indicators, international faculty ratio, international student ratio, continue to have the same weight, but we introduced 3 new indicators, as I have just described when we looked at the previous slide. International Research Network, which is effectively the indicator measuring the diversity of international research collaborations that every university has, based on data from Scopus. Sustainability, that's an aggregate indicator that combines 20 different dimensions related to sustainability for every university. And those experts that submit data for our analysis, they know how much time and energy it takes to collect data related to sustainability. And finally, employment outcomes, for which we look at the percentage of graduates that have been able to successfully find a job. This is the short-term perspective. And the long-term aspect of employment outcomes is presence of your most successful graduates in the lists of Forbes, Fortune, leaders of governments, leaders of states, leaders of parliaments. We collect a lot of data about presence of your graduates in different lists of top politicians, top businessmen, top entrepreneurs, top artists, top conductors of the national orchestras. So we look at all these lists, about 250 lists, to calculate the score of your universities in employment outcomes. That's the distribution of the 1,503 institutions by country. And you can see that the biggest number of institutions is in the US. The second biggest is in the United Kingdom. Then we have the mainland China, 71 universities. That's the top 3 countries by the number of institutions included in QS World University Rankings. Now let's look at the impact of the new methodology on the results of Turkish institutions in QS World University Rankings. And you can very, very clearly see that starting from 2014, the positions of universities in Turkey were declining all the way down to 2023. And in 2023, when we introduced the new methodology, you see 2024, almost all institutions have improved. In 2025, absolutely all institutions in Turkey, without any exceptions, have improved their positions. And what is particularly important on this very slide is that you don't look at the ranges here. You look at the precise positions of Turkish institutions within the range. So that's impressive, just because we have significantly reduced the faculty-student ratio and introduced a new research indicator. Certain countries, including Turkey, and Turkey is in the top 10 countries with the most significant improvement of positions in QS World University Rankings. So this change has helped institutions in Turkey to significantly improve their ranks and positions all across the list of institutions that you can see on the right side of this slide. If you look at the leaders in Turkey by every indicator, you can definitely see that ODTÜ, the Middle East Technical University, is #1 in Turkey, and it has improved its position year over year. You can see that on the top of this slide, we have different indicators of the methodology: academic reputation, employee reputation, faculty-student ratio, citations per faculty, international faculty ratio, international student ratio, international research network, employment outcomes, and sustainability. On the bottom, you have 2 different data sets, one for 2024 and the other one for 2025. And on the vertical axis, you have the score from 1 to 100, which helps us compare performance of institutions in 2024 to the performance in 2025. And every single dot on this graph, the blue dot and the orange dot, represents the score of a Turkish institution in our rankings. So you can see on the scale from 1 to 100, the biggest score, both in 2024 and 2025, is the score of the Middle East Technical University. The Middle East Technical University also leads in 2 reputation indicators: academic reputation and employee reputation. And since we calculate the academic reputation and employee reputation scores based on the results of our reputation surveys, we can conclude that the Middle East Technical University receives the biggest number of employer and academic nominations in both of our surveys, which was absolutely impressive. It testifies to a very, very strong international recognition that your university has in the global arena. Sabancı University leads in faculty-student ratio. Koç University is #1 in the country by the number of citations per faculty, and we exclude self-citations, which is absolutely important. Citation data comes from Scopus Elsevier. International faculty ratio, Bilkent has traditionally been #1 by far, with a very distant #2 on this graph. So Bilkent University has always been, and probably will continue to be, the leader of the Turkish higher education by the percentage of international faculty working in higher education institutions. international student ratio, we have Istanbul Aydın University taking the first spot for this particular indicator. International Research Network, the largest network of international research collaborations, is with Istanbul Technical University, being #1 for this indicator right here. Bogazici University is #1 by employment outcomes, with a very significant progress as compared to the score of this university back in 2024. For sustainability, ITU, Istanbul Technical University, has overtaken the Middle East Technical University, and they have accomplished a huge amount of work related to sustainability. So we have seen it in our data. So it was absolutely great to recognize their performance in sustainability by showing their #1 position in this indicator. That's the slide that nobody has ever seen in Turkey because it was prepared for this particular symposium. When we compile university rankings, we look at reputation data set, research data set, internationalization data, and employability and sustainability data. But it's normally a very interesting exercise to look at each of these data sets separately, but it's even more interesting to try to make the correlation, do the correlation analysis for some data sets to see how these two data sets come together and what kind of conclusions we can make based on this correlation analysis. So on the left, on this graph, you see the top 20 countries that have the biggest number of citations for papers produced with the Turkish scholars. On the second left bar, you can see the top 20 countries by the number of organizations that produce joint research together with the Turkish organizations. And you can see it quite clearly that the United States, United Kingdom, Germany, Italy, and China, and the list is very, very similar, but you also have India right here, are the countries in which the level of international research collaborations with Turkey is very, very high. On the right side, however, let's look at the second bar from the right, which is the number of academic nominations received by Turkish institutions in our QS Global Academic Survey. We clearly see that the reputation of Turkey, of the Turkish higher education, is particularly strong in the neighboring countries. Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan have the biggest number of nominations submitted in favor to support Turkish institutions in our rankings. The same goes for employer nominations. Kazakhstan leads, Azerbaijan is #2 by the number of nominations received by Turkish institutions in our QS Global Employer Survey. So what does this mean? There is a gap between your research profile as a country and your international recognition. Your reputation is very, very strong in the region of your presence. At the same time, this very, very strong reputation in Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan doesn't translate into a significant volume of research. You don't produce a lot of research with Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, and yet you have very, very strong reputation in these countries. Likewise, you produce a lot of papers with countries like Germany, Italy, China, and India, but this significant amount of research doesn't translate into very strong reputation because these are not the countries that support Turkish institutions in our service very, very consistently. So that's an opportunity. That's the story behind data. And when people are obsessed with the positions in the rankings, with ranks in the rankings, we always say that rankings data are maybe even more important than positions in the rankings because these data give you unique insights about how you can adjust the strategy of your universities to reflect the findings, the data that we have in our rankings that we use to develop our rankings. Clearly, there's an opportunity here to strengthen your reputation outside of your home region and to do more research with the countries such as Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan that have very, very high opinion of the higher education in Turkey. Let's very, very quickly look at QS World University rankings by subject. That's the methodology. Very, very quickly, I will tell you about it. I'm sure many people on this call are familiar with the methodology. In the top part of the screen, we see the 5 indicators that we calculate to develop subject rankings. And those are academic reputation, employer reputation, citations per paper, organizational age index, and international research network. And you can see in the bottom part of this chart, we have 55 subjects in which we publish university rankings, subject rankings. And of course, the composition of these indicators is different depending on the importance of scientific research. So the more green color you see, the more important is research for this particular subject. And obviously, you can see a lot more green color, which is the research-focused indicators for life sciences and medicine, for natural sciences and engineering and technology, and the role of research. And you see that the green color here is not that much prominently visible in arts and humanities and social sciences and management. 55 subjects. This year we have new subjects like music, history of arts, but I wanted to show you something else. This is not data that is publicly available. What you can see on this slide is on the top, you can see all these 55 subjects that we showed on the previous slide. Under these subjects, you can see the gray bars. And the height of this gray bar represents the number of positions in every published range of every subject. So, for example, here we have the number of positions, and in archaeology, we rank 240 institutions. So the height of this bar represents the size of the published range. And the green dots right here represent institutions from Turkey that have positions in our subject rankings. And the red dots represent institutions in Turkey that have positions outside of the published range in our subject rankings. So the point of this graph is to show you the potential that Turkish institutions have for inclusion in our subject rankings. This is absolutely impressive. So we see there's a lot of improvement all across the community of Turkish institutions in our rankings, but we see that the potential for further improvement is absolutely enormous. And this graph very clearly demonstrates this potential. That's the research output of Turkey from 2019 to 2023, because this is the period that we will consider in our next ranking cycle of 2026. And on the horizontal axis, you see the scholarly output, which is effectively the number of publications. On the vertical axis, you have the field-weighted citation impact, which is a proxy for the impact of research. And you clearly see that research in Turkey is absolutely excellent. If you look at the percentage of papers in Q1 and Q2 journals, for many institutions, this percentage exceeds 80%. However, for your most productive subject, which is medicine, you have not yet crossed the line of the field-weighted citation impact. And, you know, because I have seen my colleagues from Clarivate, former colleagues, joined this call. In the Web of Science, this indicator is called CNCI, Category Normalized Citation Impact. For the field-weighted citation impact, when it's equal to 1, that's the world's average number of citations received by all the papers indexed in this particular scientific database, meaning Scopus. For the medicine, a big number of publications, maybe it's very, very difficult to maintain the level of impact when you have a big number of publications, but there's an opportunity for this subject to cross this line and to increase the impact of your research in medicine by showing your excellence of your medical research to the rest of the world. But for many, many other subjects, your research has the field-weighted citation impact far above 1, which is absolutely incredible. And I will continue to say that Turkey is the leader by quality of scientific research in the region without any question. Let's now look at QS Europe University rankings. For these rankings, we have 11 indicators in the methodology, actually 12 indicators in the methodology. We have academic reputation and employee reputation with the same weights of 30% and 15%. But for research, we already have 3 indicators here. And unlike in QS World University rankings, when we calculate the number of citations per faculty member, in European rankings, we calculate the number of citations per paper. We also look at the number of papers per faculty and at the international research network. We have slightly decreased the weight for the faculty-student ratio. It used to be 10%, now it's 5%. Sustainability is yet another time a new indicator in the methodology of our European rankings. We also have international faculty ratio and international student ratio. We continue to have academic mobility for outbound exchange and for inbound exchange, but we also have a new indicator, employment outcomes, that is calculated in a very similar way compared to how we do it in QS called university rankings, which is the percentage of your graduates that have been able to successfully find a job. And finally, the presence of your graduates in the lists of top politicians, businessmen, and entrepreneurs. And if you look at performance of Turkish universities in the European rankings that were published in September, so these rankings are very new. We released them very, very recently, a few weeks ago. Again, of course, the results of these rankings are correlated very, very greatly with the results of QS World University rankings. And you can see that the Middle East Technical University is #1 by academic reputation and employee reputation. For faculty student ratio, we have Acıbadem University taking the first spot. For international research network, it's Istanbul Technical University. You see IGU is #1 for citations per paper. We see GTU, Gebze Technical University, is the leader for the number of papers per faculty. We have Bilkent #1 by international faculty ratio. International student and diversity, actually, it's very, very interesting because Karabük had been #1 in Turkey all the time until this year, and Bahçeşehir University has overtaken this institution, and now it's #1 in Turkey by international student ratio. Firat University, and which is great because Firat is not yet in our QS World University rankings, but we can see data for Firat University because a bigger number of institutions from Turkey is included in our regional rankings. So Firat is #1 for inbound exchange student. Galatasaray is #1 for outbound exchange student. Sustainability, again, ITU has the first spot, and for employment outcomes, Bogazici has the leading position among Turkish institutions. So that's the overall results of Turkey in our regional rankings. Sometimes people believe that regional rankings are not as important as world university rankings, but from the perspective of any rector, from the perspective of any deputy rector, it's always good to have data for decision making across a bigger number of indicators. And you can see these indicators, the more indicators you have, the more data you have for your decision making, the more opportunity for your benchmarking analysis that enables you to compare your university with other universities in your target range. A few words about sustainability rankings that we introduced last year, actually 2 years ago. Sustainability rankings has many indicators, but we can categorize, we can classify them in 3 different groups: environmental impact, social impact, and governance. For environmental impact, we have sustainability, environmental education, environmental research. For social impact, we have equality, knowledge exchange, impact of education, employability and opportunities, health and well-being. And finally, we have the governance. So when we ask you to submit your data for sustainability, it's your data and data from Scopus that have a lot of impact on your overall result in our sustainability rankings. And you can see the leaders across all these indicators. Actually, the number of institutions that have demonstrated their excellence in sustainability is 3. And Istanbul Technical University, Middle East Technical University, together with Koç University, have the leading positions all across these indicators. And I probably will not waste your time by naming this indicator that I have in the bottom of the screen. You will have these materials later after our symposium, and please feel free to ask any questions that you may have on these results. Since the topic of this symposium is the future of rankings, and it's very difficult to say what the future holds for the rankings, but we are looking at 2 particular aspects of university performance that can become part of our methodology in the future. #1 is skill gaps. We are the only rankings company that has employability in the methodology of our flagship rankings. And we recently acquired a company called One Mentor that analyzes data about skills required by employers in different countries by processing real time about 120 million job postings on different online resources. So we collect a lot of data about skills required by employers in different countries and regions. We also do our QS Global Employer Survey, in which we ask employers about the level of importance and satisfaction that different skills have from their perspective, for their companies, for their organizations. And by subtracting satisfaction from importance, we calculate the skill gaps. So I have extracted data from Turkey, and on your left, you can see the importance that employers in Turkey attach to these particular skills in this list. In the middle, you can see that the satisfaction score for the skills is very, very different, but this is how satisfied employers in Turkey are with the skills listed on our slide. And finally, you can see that the largest gaps that Turkey has from the perspective of Turkish employers are the gaps in language skills, problem solving, ethics and social responsibility, data skills, and organizational skills. Why is this important for global competitiveness of universities? First of all, if you want your graduates to be successful after graduation, if you want them to be able to find jobs, then you need to be able to listen to employers on a regular basis, understand what they are happy with, what they may not necessarily be happy with, and adjust your curricula to the demands of the employer community. And if you have this information about skill gaps, maybe you can adjust your curricula to teach these skills even more effectively, so that your graduates could be even more successful when they are on the labor market after they graduate from your universities. And finally, we have the digital maturity framework. It's almost impossible to evaluate digital maturity of 7,000 institutions that we have in our database. You can collect data about research from Scientometrics databases. You can collect data about reputation from our surveys. You can collect quantitative data about the number of students and the number of faculty members, but it's extremely difficult to collect data about technology infrastructure, about clouds, networks, technology curricula, introduction or integration of technology in the decision-making process. So we have introduced this digital maturity framework that we developed together with our partners in Amazon Web Services and in Intel. For this particular exercise, for this framework, we don't look only at what kind of computers universities have. That would be a very short-sighted approach. We look at a much wider range of aspects related to university performance in digitalization. We have introduced 5 different levels of digital maturity, and we collect different pieces of data to evaluate digital maturity of universities. We classify this data data into 2 different categories, inputs and outputs. By inputs, we believe we have 4 different groups of indicators. Number 1 is how technology is introduced in decision-making, how technology is introduced in teaching and learning, how data infrastructure is well developed, and how technological infrastructure is developed. For output metrics, we look at student experience, academic experience, and employability. And to measure student experience, to evaluate academic experience and employability, we conduct student, academic, and employer surveys for each and every university. So it's possible to evaluate universities in the context of digital maturity, not evaluating a big number of universities, but by looking at every particular university. It's like an individual project, after which we issue a certificate of digital maturity to those universities that have been able to prove that they have a certain level of technology literacy for faculty, for students, and for employers. And these are all the different indicators that we are going to look at. What about integration of data? When we look at data, we look at the data lakes that universities have, we look at the data policies, we look at the privacy of personal data. So it's much more than just computers in the university. When we look at the governance, we look at how technology influences and how technology is used for decision-making by universities. What kind of policies universities have to manage technology and to make decisions based on data and use of technology. We look at the technological infrastructure, we look at clouds, we look at security protocols, we look at networks. And most importantly, we look at how technology is integrated in the curricula, how it's integrated in the learning process. At our upcoming Asia Pacific Summit 2024 that we will do in Macau, in China on the 6th of November, we will announce a very important initiative related to skills. So skills and employability will continue to become a critical element of our rankings in the very near future. So please stay tuned for more news. And that's the future of rankings from our perspective: employability, sustainability, and international research collaborations. These three things will continue to be absolutely strategically important for us, and hopefully universities will attach a lot of significance, a lot of attention to developments that we will have in this area. Please feel free to reach out. You can see the email address in the bottom left corner of the screen. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions on the data that you have seen, on the indicators that you may have questions about. Welcome anytime. Many thanks again for this opportunity to speak, to make a presentation in this very, very distinguished forum. Many thanks, Professor Dr. Ural Akbulut, again, and thanks, dear participants. Teşekkür ederim.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sergei. Very intense lecture. There will be, I'm sure, a lot of questions. Today we have our final speaker from United Arab Emirates, Mr. Walid Hassan, and he will be presenting research visibility and commercialization in the realm of AI revolution. Walid, are you here?
Hello, everyone, and apologies, just I'm trying to share my presentation. Thank you. Just one moment. Is it? I don't know what I'm having here. This one. Can you see my screen or my presentation?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So let me. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So just thank you and apologies. I couldn't. So initially it was planned to travel, and then when there was no travel, so I had to change my schedule, and I wasn't able to connect from the beginning of the sessions. So I'm sure, and especially I watched and I followed from Sergei. I'm sure I missed a lot. But anyways, I hope we can meet you all at a certain point in time and speak and discuss about ranking and about universities. I won't be presenting a lot of data because, you know, we Clarivate, we have a lot of data, a lot of things. I will be speaking a bit about, you know, how we understand, you know, university rankings, and then what are the key strategies for research enhancements and objectives. And that's mainly because, you know, and that's, I love university rankings. I admire the work and the data and the analysis all behind it, from, you know, studying, analyzing the outputs and outcomes of research. But we sense at some point in time, university ranking has been changing kind of, you know, to be by itself a weighting objective and a heavy objective on the university strategy rather than being an outcome, you know, because the university strategy should not, and, you know, I'm just in conferences and meetings, we meet people from universities, especially decision makers, and say, what's the aim? What's your objectives? And they come, I want to be among top 300 in THE. I want to be like that in QS. Say, okay, this is not a strategy, you know, this is not an objective, it's an outcome. Yes, it would be good to be in rankings, but let's go one step backwards and, you know, try to understand these ranking indicators and how we can, from a university perspective, I'm speaking, and I'm sure, you know, this ranking is a measurement, I would say, tool as all the rankings that will help us at least to craft an intelligent and smart strategy for, you know, for our university or research activities. So just, you know, well, I won't spend a lot of time of this. I'm sure you are all aware. You know, universities, they look at ranking. Today, it started to change. Before, they wanted to can more attract students, attract talents. Today we start seeing people say, I want to be in a better ranking, so can I build a better relationship with the industry? When I go to the industrial, I say I am ranked that much, right? How can I commercialize research? So you can see, the research commercialization, the industry partnerships, the branding of the university itself is being a kind of, it's a whole of transformation, I would say, in the perspectives and the look of the ranking, plus the globalization, of course, and then, the funding streams of research, all these things. So, of course, it can play a role, yes, of course, and most likely, especially in the MENA region, I would say in Europe. I used to work with universities in Europe, or because I cover EMEA within my work. Students, they follow, like, say, France, say, UK. UK is a bit different from France, but they follow kind of, I want to do that specialization. I know this university, they are big names known for years and years, right? But if you come back to the MENA, and especially UAE, Saudi Arabia, and this region, most of the students, they gonna go and search for the ranking. And it started to be a trend, even if you're gonna eat something in a restaurant, they're gonna go and see the ranking now. It starts to be a trendy in everything. So ranking really plays an important role in the decision making of the students for the selection of the universities. And that's clear, right? It's a trend. While I'm saying this, in UAE, in the region, the MENA region, more than Europe. Well, many other, organizations, there are many other organizations for the rankings. I won't, explain and stop a lot about that, because you know them. And also if they are somehow, something kind of missing or not correct exactly in the percentages, it's kind of, we gathered these just to give a hint. But, if we looked at the methodologies and just the indicators, and mostly about, you see the world citations all over. Citations, and that's the international outlook. Well, there is industry outcome, the knowledge transfer, the scores, all these, but mainly citations. Mainly it's around citation, and that's, true. If you look at this compiled matrix that we looked at and said, okay, let's take what are the common indicators among different ranking systems, from QS to Times Higher to Shanghai and CWTS. And you could see citations, it comes for most of them, except Leiden, because it's an indirect calculation. Citations, they come as a direct calculation for the ranking, besides academic reputation. So international outlook, academic reputation, and citations. That's are the top three. So if you really could be, performing great at these top three, it's guaranteed that you're going to be ranking well. I'll come back to that and see how we can, what does it mean citations, regardless where it has been taken, from Scopus or from Web of Science or wherever, it doesn't matter. The most important thing is that people sees you, reads your research, and interacts with you, and we're going to see. But all about visibility, to be honest. Citations, academic reputation, international outlook is all about visibility, and we're going to say, we're gonna speak more about that. Now, what are the future trends? What we see, and this is mainly you guys in the ranking, you know better. But what we see, the change in the world, the people, they ask the questions, we want to assess ourselves. Of course, more into global impact plus social responsibility, sustainability. It's coming, it's becoming a requirement. It's becoming a requirement, not from only a ranking perspective, because this time I feel the ranking authorities or the ranking bodies, they follow the trends of the market. Because today you feel when you speak to the university, say, I want to know my kind of sustainability score. I don't care. It's not much about the ranking, but for myself. And that's a good point of transformation and change. Also, you know, people started to look at diverse metrics beyond research and citations and all this. And that's important also, while it won't be very important for Clarivate and Elsevier. But at the end of the day, it's important also to look at some indicators out of the research kind of pool of indicators that we look at. Transparency, accountability, also people to kind of regionalize rankings, because and Sergei mentioned a very important thing, especially when looking at Turkey and around its neighbors and the reputation among the neighbors. So regional ranking is important. And I would say, you know, if you reflect what's happening in the interaction of research and science to the university, to the economy, you could see, for example, people who has a lot of, you know, trade interactions among themselves, they will reflect this, that will be reflected on research, because today the market cannot be starting driving research more than, say, the blue sky and invention and the willing to change the world. This is kind of changing. Today, it's a market-driven research, I would say, more than before. The digital transformation, of course, and digital infrastructure will be something important for universities to look at, and collaborations and AI, all these things could be, you know, future strengths. But, you know, why citations? Why people, they speak about citations and visibility? Most likely visibility. How I define, don't hate me for the mathematics equation. It's just I put the definition of convolution because for me, visibility is a convolution of quality plus interest. So, and why it's a convolution? Because it's over time. It's dependent, because, you know, some articles for Bohr, I'm sure some of you, or maybe you heard of Bohr. Bohr is, I would call him the father of the nanotechnology science, right? And Bohr, who discovered, or who measured the radius of the angstrom, the radius of the hydrogen atom, right? And this is the basis for the you know, nanotechnology. Bohr published his articles way before he actually, he lived at the era of Einstein, right? And to be kind of known at when Einstein was there, it was something, right? But like, if you look at the citations of his papers by that time, of some papers, it was really no one. It was, of course, of high quality, but there were no interests, right? And while with time, you look today at Bohr, especially with the development of the nanotechnology science, where really Bohr is getting a lot of interest and citations again. Well, he's not there to tell him, but of course, you know, that means time is an important factor in terms of interest, and especially for some people who are really beyond the market and beyond you know, where they work, beyond the scientific community. So that's it. It's kind of, you know, research. The visibility for us is kind of quality and interest. And by the way, you know what? When you are visible, when you are doing research of high quality and of interest for the market, and if I am looking, and here, which market we're going to define, that's also something important. So today, if I'm looking at research commercialization and I want to sell and make an economic value out of my research, then to whom I will sell the research? To the industry? Perfect, that's amazing. So I want to do research. I should be doing research of interest for the industry so that, you know, I would be visible. And when I do, and you know, good quality research, of course, industry, they will see me, especially if I file patents or build a kind of, you know, IP portfolio. Then the industrials, they will be looking at me. They will spot me before I go to them. And that's very important. So that the main thing about visibility is looking at the quality, but also the interest and understanding the market, understanding how to do and why to do research. Anyways, looking at citations and things, it's also something, especially, why people looked at citations back in time. The story of Garfield and how was, but anyways, it never told, or it never meant to mean that if Article A gets more citations than Article B, then Article A is better than Article B. No. It was meant to say that if Article A gets more citation than Article B, that means Article A of more scientific or more interest to the scientific community. Or also, there are a lot of people, especially if the citations were in the positive way, because, some people may cite you, but to say that you are doing wrong. So if the citations was in a positive way, so that means you have more people who agree with you. So anyways, citations for an article, for a university, for a country, even when you look at it from a perspective, it tells you, it can come from competitors, from potential collaborations, or people who are going to buy from you. So this is the market analysis, actually. If you look at it, if you understand who's citing you and who's citing a certain topic, because maybe you want to work in a certain topic. So you look who's citing this certain topic from a research perspective, but also from an IP perspective, from patent perspective, you understand who is doing what in that topic. And that gives you a kind of analysis of the market. That gives you an understanding of the market. It's important. I don't care about the citations. Tell me about my paper. I get 50 citations or 60 or whatever average percentile or CNCI. It doesn't, even the CNCI for me, if I have some papers, well, the CNCI could come 3 or 4 or 5, whatever. It doesn't mean anything for me. The most important thing for me is say who cited me and why they cited me. That's especially if my perspective is to make an economic value and outcome. So in order to improve research citations is like, especially that visibility through the quality plus the interest, which is explained by novelty. I won't go all through this, but I have put this so later when I share this presentation, when you look at it, or when researchers or people who are going to look at that, they can get some ideas in terms of citation practices, in terms of professional development, in terms of publishing strategy. All this help in visibility. And by the way, when we say publishing strategy, it's also the non-publishing strategy, because at a certain point in time as a researcher, if you find something new, you would say you should not publish, you should go to file a patent, right? Because if you publish, you will lose the right to file a patent later, unless only in the United States you have 1 year, but all over the world, if you publish your research, you lose, the opportunity to file a patent. So also about novelty, because that's very important. The classical way of doing research, and here I would mention like this European Patents Office, they mentioned about, they did an analysis and they published it. They say 30% of the money spent on research is wasted. And not only because we are going to conferences, but no one is going to conferences these days, it's less. But it's just only because we are redeveloping existing inventions. Why? Because the approach was for researchers to make their literature review only in, articles and scientific articles. They won't look into patents, while 80% of new technological informations are in patents, not in articles. And besides, the classical way, like the researcher, he used to come to do research. We have a great idea. Yes, we're going to go do research 5-6 years. And then we say, okay, we got this. We're going to publish it. We publish. And then we go to the patent office university like that. When we are coming back from, lunch or just passing by, say, hey, kid, could we file a patent out of this? So that patentability sense or awareness, it wasn't there. Now we changed. There is a novel approach, and like people, they get ideas, but they do the innovation due diligence. They do the patentability opportunity. They say, okay, I will look this idea, who has patents, so that before starting and spending money and time and effort on doing research, they will see if there is a patenting opportunity, and then their priority then when they got results is to look if really we could file a patent and then we publish. So that especially if you want to go towards research commercializations or making economic value out of research. And so that the novel approach is to look at scientific literature plus patent information, because like it's always information. I mentioned why it's important, the patent data, and that was a model that we have worked on with some universities, like a consortium of universities in Europe, about the strategy, about how they identify their topic. It's really important in terms of, what's the problem, who needs that, and see, the understanding. When the researcher comes to understand the topic, if he follows this model, we have, of course, many models for many research practices, topic, strategy, publishing, all these. But this model for the topic identification, if he gets to understand and to answer all these questions, of course, he will be brilliant in understanding his research topic and, and really being effective. And of course, he's going to be visible, right? He's going to be visible to the industry, visible to the market he's looking at, and getting citations, getting economic value. That will enhance also and reflect on his ranking. Some strategic actions quickly, and then was like, because when we look at it as a conceptual framework, so it's between inputs, activities, outputs, and outcomes. So like, if I want to increase the outputs, like number of publications, number of patents, you could increase the input, you could inject in the input, it's gonna go proportional with it. While if I want really to look at the outcomes, which is the scientific and the societal impact, which is one of the most important things today that we think at, including social responsibility, of course, mentioned, and the global impact, societal impact. That is, if you want to affect your outcomes, you have to work on your activities. And I think one of the important aspects that universities today need to take the ranking results, and reflect back on not the inputs, not looking for more funding or of course they have to look for more funding, but the activities, the way they are doing research, how they are processing, their IP strategy, their partnerships, their recruitments, that the quality assurance, both in education and in teaching, but in research also. So if they work on the activities, that will be, where you could enhance the outcomes. Of course, I won't be spending a lot of time about, evidence-based strategies in terms of how we can make decisions, how we can evaluate what we do and our activities. But there's a kind of, this promoting that culture of research. And, what we feel usually when we meet researchers, we meet people, we feel that they are doing research because, I have this, when we ask them why you are doing that, some of them, I want to be promoted, this is my only way to get professor rank. Yeah, I respect, by the way, it's promotion is something important because everyone looks for promotion, whatever. When I was in the university, I wanted to publish 50, 60 papers, but I wanted to be professor. That's something, the promotion is something, and I understand it. But when I come back today and look at what have been happening and the way we are doing it, I would say we missed a lot. And that's because, I would say there are a lot of things if we ask ourselves how we were doing today, and and are we doing in the right way, and then are we sure that we are doing in the right way, and how we can make it better. Of course, we can develop a lot of things, and that's what we are trying to kind of, that research culture in terms of innovation, training, transfer of expertise, building people, recognition and incentives. I know a lot of big researchers in universities, they will never come to a student or to a research assistant and say, oh, you did. Of course, there are a lot that they do it, but they are very busy to speak to people, to build that community, right? So that's also some of the important things, you know, and actions to promote research culture. I would say this one of things could be, you know, could be important if have been made, you know, part of the rankings in a way, right? And this is like, you know, also that reflects on how they, you know, allocate strategic resources, how they can, you know, build collaborative partnerships, because also in terms of our partnerships as a university, that's also enhances our visibility and gives us a great international outlook. But we have to know in these collaborations which ones, because you know the today they look at it like, give me better ranking, okay, I will do it. I'll do this collaboration with this university, give me more citations, then higher ranking, then we will go. Okay, that's important, but the most important thing, if your objective then to go to research commercialization and building an economic value or societal impact, then the collaboration objectives, the way you assess will be a different story, right? The way will be in a different perspective. So I would say, you know, as a whole, and I will kind of, you know, stop here about, you know, the first of thing, one of the most important things that can develop and push people to develop in university strategies is technology integration is very important. And I think Sergei mentioned in the thinking of how the digital transformation could be assessed and the work they have or they are doing, and this is great. I really you know, like the idea and the thing. Development of their facilities in terms of research and especially kind of, you know, having more capacities to do research and to bring industrials to be in a good relationship and to bring tight relationship with the industrial, and also to kind of you know, make available all their you know, data and know-how. That's very important. We are capturing publications, outputs of research in terms of publications, patents, but know-how, we are still very far in terms of know-how, and that's a very important topic to look at. I will stop here to you know, for questions, and apologies if it was kind of very theoretical, my presentation, because I meant it not to present data. You have access to our databases and you can extract the data you want.
Thank you very much, Walid. Very nice talks. Actually, we had the 4 outstanding rating heads and seniors in this meeting. So thank you very much for this very valuable presentation to all. I think we have an audience, so there can be questions from the audience. We can wait for them. They will probably appear in the chat box. And if there are any, please feel free to write. But at the very beginning, actually, I would like to ask all the 4 speakers. Now there is an artificial intelligence issue. Some of you have already mentioned that. So we know that artificial intelligence, AI, is not a tool, but it's a decision maker. And we are recently recognizing that in manuscript writing. And a lot of rankings actually are based on the number of publications and also the number of citations. So what do you think about AI? How is it going to shape our future for the university rankings? Is it a threat or is it an opportunity? Any comment about that? Maybe we can start with Isidro. You mentioned about AI. Would you like to have some comments on AI?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I am unable now to go into depth because, you know, the topic is very revolutionary and also very technical from several points of view. But I think you need to consider the impact at least at 3 levels. For the rankers, for people like us, it's a very good tool for obtaining additional information in a very straight way. So perhaps, you know, one of our problems is related to the collection of data. So probably AI is going to help us a lot of in this way. The second one is for the ranking themselves, because probably if you are able to add more information to the ranking, not only the positions, but also not only the ranks, but also additional information, I think this can be especially interesting because you can give them better visualization tools, for example, or you can go into details that currently are not able to be obtained from the rankings, and perhaps this can be a very interesting development. And the end, the third aspect you need to consider is the impact on the users. Of course, there are different kind of users. It's not the same the rector of the university or the student that is seeking for a new institution. But I think for both ends, the AI can be very useful. Of course, this is the positive part. There is a negative part. Sometimes the information is not correct or is not objective. It is probably we have a lot of biased information that can be fed into artificial intelligence. So we need to take care about that. But this is very interesting for us as rankers, because we as editors of the information, we need to take care about this possibility. So at the end is, oh, okay, we are going to make rankings using only artificial intelligence. No, we are still doing rankings the old way with the help of the artificial intelligence and curating the information that is provided by the artificial intelligence.
Sergei, would you like to comment?
Well, in our work, we look at AI from 3 different perspectives. The most important perspective, maybe the immediate need to look at AI, is driven by interest of employers to hire people, to hire students that have skills in AI. And universities, especially big universities, sometimes may be very slow in integration of AI in the university curricula, which means that graduates of these universities, their AI skills may not necessarily catch up very quickly with the demand from employers. And in this context, micro-degree programs offered by Coursera, by some other companies that help you get a 1-year diploma in AI can compete very effectively with conventional universities. And we have seen it many times that employers, especially IT companies, don't want their students, their graduates who join them, to know history, philosophy, sociology. They want them to know a lot about big data, machine learning, AI. And if you have a certificate of such program, then your chances to be employed is very, very high, are very high. So what can universities do about it? How quickly can universities adjust their curricula to integrate AI and other emerging skills into their programs is absolutely critical for survival of these universities. That's number one aspect. Number two aspect is to help institutions, and this is something that we are very much involved in, to find international students that would likely to accept their offers, to increase the conversion rate from the community of international students that would like to go abroad and do their degrees abroad, how to find those that would likely to study at their universities. We do a lot of work as QS that doesn't have immediate impact on the rankings, but we believe it's very, very important to find these students, especially when some countries introduce some internationalization caps on the number of international students coming to different countries. So our role is to match, with the help of AI, universities and students that can choose each other and help them get connected. So this is the role of AI. And the third perspective that we are looking at AI from is the digital maturity. Without integration of AI in the workflows of universities, again, it's very, very difficult for any university to be globally competitive. AI should be integrated for decision-making, for decisions on resource allocation, So that's the third perspective. So AI is critical. It will continue to be a very, very high priority on the agenda of universities, and universities have to embrace the challenge, in our humble opinion.
Thank you, Sergei. Walid, any comments on AI?
Yeah, I think it's a challenging, a challenging position to be today between the university, the student, and the AI and the, different actors. We at Clarivate, we had the same situation. We were thinking, what's AI can bring on the table? It's very important. And after discussion and thinking, the decision was to incorporate AI in our tools in a way like, to help researchers, to help people to get access more to what they are searching for or to get for. In a nutshell, I won't take long because it's a big, let's say, topic to discuss. For me, and personally, and it's an opportunity, to be honest. It's an opportunity. Universities, they have to take it. They have to. We cannot say we don't want AI. It's done. It's there, right? It's like we cannot go back. So we have to find a way, to change the way we do things in a way that AI could not be the decision maker, however, could be the helpful or could be who is giving the insights so that the human, he will make the decisions at the end of the day. And besides, the content should be created always, the knowledge, it's created by the humans and it's given to the AI system. So basically, we should enable people to spend more time on creating knowledge rather than kind of, expressing it. So that's my own position.
Okay, thank you very much. Ural Hocam, any comments on AI?
Yeah, I would like to say that whenever there is a new invention, it has two sides. It may be helpful to scientists or to community or business, but on the other side, it may be harmful. So it depends on who uses it and how they use it. So I think maybe some people maybe try to write some articles by using artificial intelligence, which collects data from originally published papers, and then you have a paper which is written by artificial intelligence, and then if you submit it. But I think you can also use the editors or the referees can use artificial intelligence to see if that paper was written by a person which is based on some experiments or some theoretical data, or it was produced by artificial intelligence. So I think in the beginning, maybe we may have some problems, but I'm sure that in a short time, smart people will find a solution that artificial intelligence can only be used for the benefit of humanity.
Thank you very much, Ural Hocam. Meanwhile, I did a search in the AI about university rankings.
Yeah.
Maybe I can share my screen.
Ece, yeah.
No, I can do it, I think. Let me share my screen. That's this one.
Yeah,
No,
we can see it, yes.
You can see. I asked, which is the best university according to ranking? So maybe we don't need so many ranking institutes anymore. This is the outcome. And then I asked,
Harvard became third, huh?
Yeah, Harvard became third. First is MIT, but it has written according to their, for example, ranked first in engineering and technology, etc.
I see. Okay. Engineering,
then I asked, which is the best university ranking tool? So you see QS times higher education, ARVU, and the Webometrics also in this screen. So, there's a relevance probably.
Yeah, it depends on the popularity. If you are well known, then you are chosen to be the best. Yeah.
So there's a question from Samsung University. There's the question, maybe Ece, can you just type it into the chat box because it's a long question.
Actually, I type it.
Adem, so you can copy and paste probably into it, but is asking how do world university ranking companies account for regional or cultural differences? So do you think it's important to have a regional or cultural difference in higher education systems? And to what extent does your metrics favor institutions in certain parts of the world? Like I know some of the rankings separate the world into regions. I know that Times Higher Education, for example, asks for regional reputation. What do you think about that? Is it important or not? Or is it the world reputation? Isidro, would you like to start to comment? Regional or world ranking, which is more important, or cultural differences?
Well, my experience visiting several developing countries, this is a standard topic that is commonly asked. Okay, we are different. We need to be treated differently in the ranking. Obviously, I against, but not because I am frontally against this kind of approach, because I am proposing a different approach. You have the local approach, making rankings for institutions according to local priorities or to local aspects, and you have the global aspects, that is okay, the contribution to the human purposes, so it's okay. But my approach is completely different. My approach is local. Local is okay. Universities should focus on local problems, trying to solve regional problems, regional issues, but from a global perspective. And this is important. For example, when I visit several countries in Latin America, they call me about the indigenous knowledge, the importance of the minority languages, and several things like that, the cultural aspects of these minorities. And I say, okay, please do it, but consider that there are minorities not only in your country, not only in your region, but also in other regions on the other corner of the world. So the question is, okay, you need to solve your problems with people living in mountains. They have a specific problems that you think are specific for your country. No, please go to other universities that has also people living in the mountains that has problems being solved in this way, and try to use them or to cooperate with them and so on. Of course, in this process, universities is a key actor. Universities is key actor, and this is the reason we are focusing on this. If the universities are able to solve your local problems, considering that other universities from the rest of the world has similar problems, probably is the best way to target this situation. I cannot understand this local-oriented perspective only focusing on these points. I have a lot of experiences about that, but this about indigenous people is the more clear. Every country with indigenous people has probably the same problems and different solutions that can be applied to other environments. So not local, not global, please be local.
Sergei, any comment on cultural and local differences or regional differences?
It's easy to comment on the regional differences. It's more difficult to comment on cultural differences, because we need to understand what a person asking this question means by cultural differences, and definitions can be different here. Regional differences, of course, we do analyze them a lot, and that's the reason why we develop regional rankings, because it's an opportunity to look at the best institutions in the Arabic region or in the North America region, or maybe in South Pacific, Asia Pacific region. If you want to take a closer look at institutions in a particular part of the world, that's why we develop regional rankings. But of course, we also account for the size of the academic community in the country. So if the academic community is 2,000 universities like in Indonesia, or maybe it's 209 universities like in Turkey. Of course, 10 times as many institutions in Indonesia will automatically maybe decrease the weight of a nomination coming from an expert in Indonesia. It would not be fair to assign the same weight to nominations in our reputation surveys for experts in the US, where they have more than 300 million people, and from Finland, where they have 5 million people. So yes, we account for these regional differences for the size of the academic community in every country whose experts are participating in our QS Global Academic Survey and QS Global Employer Survey. That's the first part of the question. And of course, we see a lot of interesting patterns when we do the surveys. For example, you have seen that Turkey is supported by Azerbaijan, and we know that two countries say that one nation, two countries. Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan support each other very actively. Singapore and Malaysia support each other quite a lot in our service. So there are certain alliances that can be very easily observed when you look at the results of the reputation service. So we look at these specifics of the region very, very carefully. There are some other questions. Do I have to cover, or do we focus so far on the...
No, maybe we can go to Walid and about the regional and cultural differences. Walid, what do you think as Clarivate? Do you have
Yeah, we are not from a ranking perspective, but of course we notice like cultural differences are really important, especially in the way you treat some topics, right? Like, you know, important topics like inclusion, diversity, and its perspectives in different regions. It has different meanings and it has different, you know, especially kind of, you cannot treat in the same way, right? Other perspectives, for example, also the cultural way for people, for example, they used to do research because it's kind of, most of the research that we see in the regions today is more into the needs of that specific region or that specific culture itself. Some research topics, and people spend a lot of amounts of money on certain topics that is really mean nothing for other nations or regions, right? And that's you know, well, we see a certain trend of globalization, but you know, there is still differences from a research perspective, I'm saying, and that's true.
And Ural Hocam, any comments on cultural differences or regional rankings?
Well, since URAP is a academic performance based ranking, we cannot deal with the cultural differences. So the idea of URAP is to help even the developing countries, especially to developing countries. We are not going to help MIT or Harvard. We plan to help developing countries, even though they have different cultural perspectives. They should know that for the benefit of their country, they have to do basic science and engineering or medicine or whatever researches. I mean, you cannot say that in our country, we don't care about chemistry, we don't care about technology because our culture is different. But then you have to accept that your country will never develop. For the development of countries, for the future of the young generation, you need basic science and engineering or whatever. So you cannot just close your community and say that we have different cultures. I don't think that's a good idea. We have to help them. You see, I think ranking helps them to try to be part of the world, because otherwise you will disappear in a short time. Nobody will remember that there was such a country or such a culture. No one will care about you. So if you do not develop yourself in scientifically or technologically, people notice that you exist.
Teşekkürler Ural Hocam. So actually my next question, Sergei, is to you. You mentioned about skill gaps, which is very important. And you mentioned the skill gaps of the Turkish universities. And probably this is relevant to employer reputation or employer outcomes. What do you think about the reliability of, let's say, employer reputation or employer outcomes? Is it reliable? Like an example, when you mention about collaborating institute, of course, there's a metric for that. But how reliable is the employer outcomes in your ranking? Can you comment on that?
Well, no indicator is perfect. No ranking is perfect. Every ranking is subjective. You cannot find a perfect ranking system anywhere in the world. But our 20 years experience shows that employability is important. We do our annual international student survey, and sometimes we ask students participating in our survey some provocative questions. One of those questions was, if you had to choose between the quality of teaching and employability, what would be your most important factor when you are choosing a university? And 2/3 of students said employability would be more important than quality of teaching. And of course, a fair question would be why either or, why not both quality of teaching and employability? But at least this helps highlight the motivations of people choosing the university based on some data. So employability, possibility to find a job after graduation, is an important consideration for our students. And we believe, since it's important, rankings must reflect this consideration in the methodology. How do we measure employability? We have to talk to employers, and employers need to tell us which universities produce the highest quality graduates. And of course, sociological surveys may not necessarily be the perfect way to measure reputation, but nobody has come up with a better way to measure reputation, better than asking employers about their opinions directly. So by doing the surveys, we listen to the views and opinions of the employer community. And finally, when you look at the list of top 100 Fortune or Forbes, it's always a good idea to see where these people are coming from, which universities they graduated from. If you want to be in the top 100 people in business in Turkey, which university do you have to go to be able to end up on this list? So we look at this list. So we look at the lists of the most successful politicians, businessmen, and graduates, and we try to understand better their career paths, their professional background, to inform students about their employability perspectives, how they can potentially benefit from education and skills taught in a particular university, and what kind of benefit it can bring them after graduation from universities that participate in our rankings.
Thank you, Sergei. So there's one more question to all four speakers. Like during the rankings, you always give positive points, right? So it's always, you have different metrics, but so it's always positive. But recently, we have noticed that there are some people who watch the retractions, like Retraction Watch, or the Oxford has recently the Bennett Institute. So are you planning in the future to give some negative points, like if there is a manuscript retracted because of fraud coming from one institute, or they fell into the radar of Bennett Institute? What do you think? Maybe Walid, we can start with you. Walid, what do you think? Retraction Watch, Bennett Institute of Oxford, negative points for rankings.
We are getting a lot of requests from, to say, governments, because we work with governments most of the time, especially my team, you know, we work with governments in terms of the research strategy and supporting them. And we are getting a lot of requests from government to assess the ratio of retraction and understand what's happening. Especially in the MENA region, I would say, you know, it's a big worry because, and to be honest, I think it's time to speak about that and to speak loudly about that research integrity, the way we do things. And, you know, it's just not because we thought only of AI, but, you know, listen, today, yes, AI is a mean that it can help someone to create an article and publish it. And, you know, there are ways that maybe it happens 1, 2, 3, 4, how much? No worries. But, you know, we spotted and through a kind of confidential work for some governments, and you will be surprised, that was not in the MENA region, that was in some other countries. We spotted an important proportion of people or researchers who are well known, you know, and they are kind of publishing and, you know, putting their students or the people or even not mentioning, you know, the right people who's doing the work. That used to happen in the early years of this century, but now, unfortunately, there's a certain abuse of certain, let's say, power or money in some cases. Should we say that this is global and make it a big phenomenon? I don't think so. To be honest, I want to be from the side of seeing the world is a beautiful place. I don't want to doubt everything we have, but of course, you know, exceptions exist. From our side, we are looking because it's a worry, it's a hassle for us, to be honest, to have papers indexed in the Web of Science. And you know how much it's difficult to index this in the Web of Science and then go back to the technical team, say this has been retracted, so you have to retract them. And that's, well, that affects for us the journal ranking itself, because if that means the journals, they are not doing the due diligence, necessary due diligence in terms of before accepting the paper. But, you know, it's also reflecting in a bad way on some publishers who are doing good research in some areas. So, you know, today, for example, from some countries, if you send an article, even if you do it in a right way the journal reviewers are looking at it and assessing it is different from other countries, which should not happen. So that's my point on retraction. And it's a difficult, you know, and I hope with time we can overcome this situation.
Thank you very much. Isidro, how do you think about the retraction issue?
Thank you very much. Sorry, I need to leave in a few minutes, so I am going to say goodbye. But I'm going to answer your question because I think it's relevant from our point of view. Because in the we started 21 years ago, and we are ranking about 32,000 different institutions. That means that during this period we have a Cold War. A Cold War with a lot of institutions, and we decided a long time ago to punish a lot of institutions. In fact, in the current edition, we are penalizing about 400 different institutions because they are making several kinds of bad practices. For us, it's very difficult to focus on research papers because obviously the total production of papers is huge every year, but we are focusing on other data. People are making fake pages. They are increasing. They are buying links to improve the production. They are adding people that are only visitors to their list of scholars. They are spending only 2 or 3 weeks, and they say there are top scholars for them. So we decided to penalize these institutions long time ago. And in fact, I think 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we decided to exclude a full country, all the institutions of one country from our ranking. And we are very favored on taking this kind of measures with any kind of bad practices. You are talking about papers, but you need to consider all of other activities related to university that can be prosecuted. We are in favor on doing that. Sorry, it's a very, very last time for us in Spain. I need to go to lunch. So thank you very much.
Are you going to eat paella? Are you going to eat paella?
Paella is very good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very interesting.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Presentations and very interesting discussions. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Sergei, any words about this issue?
Well, the question about retraction is most certainly a question not to rankings agency, but maybe to Dr. Walid and his colleagues at Clarivate. They know a lot about retraction and they know a lot about quality of journals that they index in the Web of Science. At the same time, let me give you an example. 1 year ago, I believe 2 years ago, when I was in Bilkent University, I spoke with Professor Dr. Kürşat Aydagan and then Orhan Aytur, when I asked them, how do you make sure that the percentage of your papers in your university is above 80% in Q1 and Q2 journals? How do you make sure? How do you do that? Do you financially incentivize your faculty members to publish in Q1 and Q2? Or how do you make sure quality of research and impact of your research is very, very high? And I believe Orhan Aytur said, you know, if our faculty member goes and publishes a paper in a Q3 journal, if you have a question, what's wrong with you? Why did you go to a Q3 journal? Why did you not publish in Q1 or Q2? And I think if you publish in Q3 and Q4, particularly in Q4 journal, then the chances of retraction, well, can be high in some countries in particular. But if you publish in Q1 and Q2, then it's highly unlikely your paper will be retracted. So you have a much lower risk. So focus on Q1 and Q2, and maybe it will not have any risk for you in terms of retraction.
Okay, thank you. Ural Hocam, any comment on retraction manuscripts?
Yeah, Sergei, we do not include Q4s. We always, since the beginning, we always exclude Q4. But Q3, I don't think we should exclude Q3. Retraction, we have to have a dependable source. If I can reach to a dependable source, of course, we will be careful about the retracted papers.
Okay, thank you. So there's a very nice question in the chat box from Semra Aşçıgil. She's saying that some universities like Utrecht, ETH, Zurich, they withdraw from some high-ranking university lists. So what do you think about that? Ural Hocam, would you like to comment about that? Why did
that started in the United States, especially from US News. They wrote them a letter, universities, they said, we do not want to appear in US News. It was because of different reasons, because of the data they had to send them on time or whatever. I don't think that it will be a big problem in future. It's a small problem, I think.
Okay, Sergei, what do you think?
I agree with Professor Dr. Akbulut, absolutely.
Okay, Walid, what do you think? Because they had some reasons, like I read the one from ETH Zurich, they had some reasons to withdraw from some of the rankings.
So to be honest, I don't have full information about the reasons and why. I heard about the news, but I didn't get the list. However, I would say, you know, some universities, they don't care much about ranking. Let's say it, to be honest. It's not their worry, right? Some universities is not their worry, right? Some regions also, but it's something, you know, we can at the end of the day, I would say it's if they have to, you know, submit to many ranking bodies at the same time, you know, papers and data and reports and all these things, it's a worry, it's a hassle for them. Or sometimes they can retract, right?
Feza, I would like to add something to my explanation.
Yes, please.
Now, the problem for US News and perhaps sometimes in DU and KS, when you obtain data from the universities. Everybody knows in the United States that when you obtain data from the universities, they artificially increase the number of articles or whatever, or they try to give better information about faculty per student, vice versa, or student per faculty. So that's why some of the universities asked US News not to rank them. They said, we know we are sure about some of the universities that they gave you fake data. And I spoke to several friends in United States many years ago, and they said that we all send data which is manipulated. So if you ask universities, they will manipulate the data. How much they do, I don't know, but all American universities, they say that we partly manipulate. That's why the top universities, United States, they said, we are not going to be in your ranking because some of the data that you obtained from universities are manipulated. It's difficult it's difficult to determine how they manipulate it, but I'm sure that they know for sure that they were manipulated. Many of the deans or presidents do not deny that they manipulate the data in the United States.
Sergei, you have a comment?
Well, it's very important to make sure that quality of data submitted by universities is very, very high. And we attach a lot of significance to quality checks. Yeah. And we do it both manually and we use some algorithms to determine some fraud in submission of data. And if we find any fraud, we disqualify universities from participation in the rankings. And it will be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to return to the rankings for such universities. Another example, again, for some reason from Bilkent University, they have deputy rector, Ejan Karashan, you may know him. He did the analysis of data in QS rankings for the number of students and the number of faculty, and the number of students and faculty in the official URAP database. And it was almost a perfect match, which we were so happy to hear about it. Like the numbers like coincided, and we're talking about the official database of the Turkish government. Data are verified. And we are happy to know that our data is kind of very well aligned with the official governmental data in Turkey. But we also look at some outliers. So for instance, I will give you an example. In Kazakhstan, the average percentage of international students in universities is about 5 or 6% of students are from outside of Kazakhstan. But then the data distribution shows us some outliers for universities that have some higher percentage of international students, like 20%. We never say that you have submitted wrong data to us, but we do some additional quality checks. We contact this university and we say, how can you explain an unusually high percentage of international students at your university? And they give us some arguments. If we are not happy with these arguments, then we go to the Ministry of Education and Science. If explanations of the Ministry of Education and Science are not kind of, well, convincing enough, then we go to the statistics agencies and we check all this data to the very last data point. But in that particular example, the university that has a very high percentage of international students was located just at the border of Uzbekistan. And Uzbekistan is the most highly populated country, 120 kilometers away from the capital city of Uzbekistan. So many Uzbek young students crossed the border to study at this university. And I know this university, I have been there many times. So for me, it was easy to check, to verify that actually, yes, just because of its geographic location, the university has benefited from inflow of students from a neighboring country. And we did these checks for Karabük. We did these checks for Istanbul Aydın University. We did these checks for Tokat Gazi Osman Pasha University, notoriously famous for a very, very high percentage of international students. So I can guarantee you, we look at these cases very thoroughly, very carefully, at every single university, at every single report or claim against a single university. And I can tell you, at the end of the ranking cycle, the collection of complaints from one university against other universities piling up quite quickly. So we attach a lot of importance to the quality of data that we collect from universities. We don't just take this data and accept it on the spot. This never happens.
Feza, can I add something to this?
Yes, please.
In Turkey, we are lucky that we have YÖK, the Higher Education Council. You can enter their pages, web pages, and then you can obtain the exact numbers. And then ÖSYM, you can obtain the exact numbers. So if a university, it was it's very easy. When you go to York, they give the number of faculty to the last number because they give you the positions. So York is the authority who keeps the exact correct files, and also ÖSYM keeps the exact correct numbers for students. In Turkey, it's very easy. I can easily check any university's data given to any institution like yourself. But I don't know about other countries because we have central agencies. But I don't think that there are similar central agencies in all countries.
In many countries, Professor Dr. Akbulut.
Yeah.
Like in many countries.
So I think we are almost at the end of our session, of our symposium. Ural Hocam, before we close, would you like to comment? Because as far as I know, we are going to share the ranking results of 2024 soon from Ural.
Turkey, yeah, tomorrow, it will be announced. The ranking of Turkish universities result will be announced tomorrow. We send it to Anadolu Ajansı. After she sends them to papers, then we put it on our webpage. There is not much change in Turkish universities' position, but of course, when you go to the middle level and then or lower level, there are many changes. But at the top, there is not much change.
Okay, so with your permission, Ural Hocam, I would like to close the symposium.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for joining us. And we are looking forward for the next meeting, which is going to be in 2026. Any other